Yeah, and then just partnered up with JB. The name Tesla and the logo means so much to so many of the fans of the cars. So, uh, help us understand who came up with the name Tesla and what were some of the alternatives, and would Tesla be called Tesla had you and JB broke out together, not met Martin?
So the Tesla Motors, which is what it was called at the time, was the trademark was actually held by a guy I think who lived in around Sacramento or something. And he so the trademark Tesla Motors was like I said owned by someone we not us. So the in the beginning it actually seemed like we would not be able to use. So you said like who came up with the Tesla Motors? The guy that we bought the trademark from,
Mm.
that guy. Um,
Lived
Not
in
only did he come up with
Sacramento?
it, he trademarked it.
Oh.
Okay, so and we could not. He would not respond to anyone, uh, any contact. So then finally, I sent Mark Topping, who is although he's Martin's best friend, is still a super nice guy. And so I sent Mark Topping to sit on the guy's doorstep and not leave until we got the Tesla Motors trademark. So that's who came up with that. I forget his name, but it's in the trademark.
Hmm.
You can look up the trademark history. That's who came up with Tesla Motors. That guy.
But you like the name so much that you insisted that
Yeah,
you sent Mark to sit on his doorstep, right?
yeah.
So
And I think we paid $75,000 for the
for the
trademark,
name.
which was a lot at that time.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I think it's also maybe important to emphasize, like, uh, you know, Martin Eberhard is quite a bit older than me and had successful startups before me and had a lot of money. He was just unwilling to risk it. He was not poor. He had a $10 million house in Woodside. Okay,
Okay.
he was just unwilling to risk his own money. I was not. I was willing to risk my own money, and in the end, I risked it all. So, it's just important to emphasize this is not like some poor inventor who gets crushed by big capitalist, which is the archetype that he tries to portray.
Ah,
He had uh, he could have matched my investment if he wanted to. He just didn't want to.
At what point, through that, right, did you start to see the red flags, right? So you join with him, he's on board. Where's
I
like,
then well, I convinced JB to join.
yeah,
So the ultimate path that I wish we had gone on was just if AC Repulsion hadn't mentioned that there were
yeah,
two other teams interested in commercializing the T0, then I would have just moved forward with JB, commercialized the T0
yeah,
with a hell of a lot less drama. Um, that's the path that I wish had occurred. The moral error that I made here is that I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. So I wanted to, like I was like, okay, I need to do SpaceX, but I also really want to do an electric car company. How can I have my cake and eat it too?
yeah,
So it's like, okay, if I have someone else run the car company and I will just be responsible for the like overall sort of technology and design, like the product side of things. Like the thing that I enjoy doing is the product side of things, not being the boss. I don't like being the boss at all, but I like engineering and design problems. So um, so I thought, okay, I'll just work on the stuff that I like doing, which is product design, and then someone else can be CEO and deal with all the chores of being a CEO. This unfortunately did not work.
no, 'cause you had a CEO in place. It didn't work out.
Well, no, yeah. Um, yeah, things finally came to a head um, in mid 2007, um, where Martin just flat out lied to me about the cost and readiness of the car. And I actually gave him an opportunity. I said, Martin, what is the cost of goods of the car? Like, how much is it? Like, what are we tracking to? And and is it above the price that we are charging? And I actually knew the answer because an investor had joined who had audited the costs, and that investor uh, told me like, hey man, the numbers he's adding up for the best case long-term cost of the Roadster is $180,000. I think we were like selling it for $85,000.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's like
huge margin.
Yeah, you can't make it up on volume.
Yeah.
Losing money, we're going to make it up at scale. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rivian has that problem right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so basically, I was like, well, this is extremely messed up. And he also said that, like, about the sort of new investor came in, said that about a third of the car works, about a third of the car is super late, and a third of it will never work at all.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, this is pretty bad. So I called Martin and said, like, Martin, what's the cost of the car? And he said he didn't know. So I'm like, okay, he's flat out lying to me. Because I asked, did you tell Martin this? And he said, yes, I told Martin this. So when I then called Martin and said, what's the cost of the car, Martin? Oh, I don't know. Are you sure? and when he did bold-faced lie to me, I was like, that's it. You know, he can't be CEO anymore. So we had a board meeting, and we fired him unanimously, including the people that he had appointed to the board.
wow.
And at the time, we did not know the full extent of the situation. So we kept him on, like he was in the company, but fired as of July of 2007. And then I still didn't want to be CEO of the company, so I got like an interim CEO. But I was effectively, it's fair to say I was de facto CEO from July 2007 because in bringing in an interim CEO, this interim CEO did not know anything about cars. So I had to basically increase my time allocation to Tesla and help the new CEO figure things out. And this is all happening as we're sort of progressing into 2008. And it, I mean, I so badly didn't want to be CEO. Like to be clear, I could have been CEO from day one. It's not like I was like, I had like majority ownership on day one.
Yeah.
Yourself, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm now CEO. If I wanted to be CEO, I could have just made myself the CEO anytime I want. There's no need for any machinations or Machiavellian anything. I just could say, I vote me CEO, end of story.
Yeah.
So it's because I was trying to not be the CEO that things became problematic.
Yeah.
So we had an interim CEO for a few months, and then we did a CEO search in 2007, and the only person who was willing to say yes was Zev Drory. I don't know if you guys remember anything about Zev Drory. All right. So Zev is I like Zev actually. Let's just say like he is fearless. So the only person who would agree to be CEO of Tesla was a guy who spent 3 years in the Israeli paratroopers and was afraid of nothing. So Zev joined as CEO, but he, from a personality standpoint, his personality did not mesh well with the rest of the team. So after about 6 months of Zev being CEO and me being de facto co-CEO, because again he didn't know anything about electric cars really. He was a technology guy from the chip industry. The team kind of had a revolt. Basically, they said, "Look, if Zev is going to continue to be the CEO, we're all going to leave."
Wow.
So they were like, I was like, okay. Then I was like, can you guys at least hang on for us to complete a financing round? So, because this is mid 2008, like July 2008, I was like, we just need to complete a financing round. Can you just, tough it out through then? And they're like, okay, we'll tough it out for a few more months. And then we tried raising money in basically summer of 2008, and we got term sheets, but the market started falling off a cliff around September of 2008. So the term sheets never turned into actual agreements to invest. And then a bunch of the investors who were thinking about investing in Tesla themselves went bankrupt. So it's not like, they're holding out on us. They themselves were just trying to figure out how not to go bankrupt. You had Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, bite the dust. And a bunch of the major banks would have bitten the dust too if there was not government intervention. So anyway, and Goldman was leading the round. it became clear around September of 2008 that no round was going to happen. The markets were plunging. And then I told Zev, like, Zev, I'm going to have to put in everything I've got, all the money I've got left. So that means I have to be CEO. I've got to, putting all my chips on the table.
Yep.
And Zev said, he totally understands. So then I was like, okay. So like technically I was CEO from like mid 2007. You say like, officially CEO in like late 2008. Man, that was a lot of drama. That was a nightmare year. So like partway through that year, SpaceX had failed its third launch.
Yep.
And I only ever thought we had enough money for 3 launches. So like we were like 0 for 3 launches with SpaceX. My marriage fell falling apart, so I'm getting divorced. The Tesla financing round is falling apart, and we're nowhere near production. And we have the Great Recession. Party on.
Yeah.
Good times.
That's
Yeah. Doesn't get worse than that.
Perfect storm, man.
built
Yeah,
into-
extremely brutal, to say the least. The lowest of the lows. So then, that was pure hell. So,
Can I ask one? When you took over as CEO, this is a piece that a lot of people I don't think I've ever seen documented. Where
Yeah.
was product development exactly? Like, how far along was the product in the making when you took it over? Because I think a lot of misconceptions. People have this idea that you showed up to a done product.
no,
Couldn't be further from the case.
I oversaw the product from the beginning.
Mhm.
So, like I mentioned earlier, my role was effectively like chief product officer. So the thing that gets confusing is that normally someone who's chief product officer is not an investor. So people get confused, like, which one are you? It's like, I'm both. And the money was the investment was the least important part. So it's just that I believe in putting your own capital at stake if you're going to start a company. Like whatever the opposite of other people's money is, I think is the morally right thing to do. So like if you're not prepared to invest your money, then why should you ask others to invest theirs? It's not right.
Great.
That's why I invest. And for my first company, Zip2, I had no money, so I could not invest in Zip2. That's
Your
why.
time.
No, like starting Zip2, just like when I put grad studies at Stanford on hold in '95, I had $100,000 in student debt, and because I didn't start the Stanford quarter, that means I didn't have access to student housing. I lost my student stipend.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had like $2,000. So, and like more than $100,000 in student debt, and one computer. So, and that summer of '95, I wrote the first maps and directions and white pages and yellow pages ever on the internet.
Yep.
Personally, by myself.
It's insane.
Yes, it's insane.
95.
And they were like, well, what web server do you use? I don't use web server. I just read the ports directly. I don't have time to move data between one processor and another. I just read the port directly. Why do you need a server? It's read port 8080. Problem solved. Anyway, but I didn't have any money. So when my brother came down, he had like $5,000. So that was like a gigantic improvement. Back in the Zip2 days, we found like a sort of an attic sort of office where there was like a hole in the roof and water like piled on the floor and the rug was all stained. But I figured it doesn't rain that often in California, so we got like a discount rug from the nearby rug store, and then got like 2 futons, and then we just like sleep in the office and then remake it so it looked official during the day. And at one point, we still only had one computer, so like the website wouldn't work at night because I was coding at night, and the web server would run during the day. And the way we got internet access was there was an ISP on the floor below, so I just ran an Ethernet cable through the ceiling, drilled a hole in the floor, ran it through the ceiling tiles, and plugged it into the ISP below.
They never
So-
knew.
No, they did know.
They did know? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they get, but they're like, we'll give you a real cheap rate if
Oh,
you can just
okay.
plug in directly. So I didn't get like a permit or anything. You know, I just drilled a hole in the floor and took the cable down and plugged it right in. So it was like,
Yeah.
okay, we don't need buy a T1 or a router or anything from Cisco. Then when my brother came down, we managed to get a second computer. So then it could be like, okay, this one can run and I can code on the other one. Yeah. So this is like that was we didn't even have an apartment. We just would basically go shower at the YMCA on Page Mill and El Camino, which was like pretty easy to walk to. So just to give you a sense of like how little money we had in the beginning. It was like nothing.
Yeah.
and eat at the Jack in the Box, if you know the Jack in the Box.
Yeah, but one thing I wanted to clear up was how did the journey of all of the founders like kind of taper? So obviously Eberhard was fired.
Yeah.
What happened with JB and all the rest? Like how was like their journey and kind of their role even
Sure.
towards
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's like it'd be accurate to say that there were like 5 co-founders of Tesla, and even though I despise Martin Eberhard, he obviously would be one of those 5. And Ian Wright should also be considered one of the 5. Like essentially, like who was there, when the company basically had nothing, which was nothing, and that's the 5 people. Now the people that were like essential at the end of the day were JB and me. So there would not be a successful Tesla otherwise. It would never even have gone into production. And I think the evidence for this would be like, hey, we fired Martin and gave him a bunch of money. Great, start a car company. He did try. It did not succeed. Yeah. So if you're so awesome, why did it succeed?
Yeah.
And why did nobody leave with him?
Yeah.
If somebody's awesome, so they leave, good people leave with them every time. Not one person left.
That's a tell right there.
Yes.
All of us have left companies and had team members follow us along. So if you can't do that as chief executive when everyone knew you, that's not a good sign for what you did there.
Yes. You're trying to figure out the truth of something. Who followed? Did no one follow? Okay. If he's a good guy and I'm the bad guy, why they'll stay with me?
Yeah.
They
It's
wouldn't.
very clear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a top-notch engineer in Silicon Valley has like 17 job offers. They can work anywhere.
Yep.
So if they don't respect the person they're working for, they're going to work somewhere else. And frankly, people could have gotten way more money than Tesla was offering, and with less risk. So it's like, okay, so they could go work at, I don't know, Apple or something, and make more money with less risk, and they didn't. And Tesla today and SpaceX are rated the top places to go by graduating engineers.
Yep.
Why is that?
Yeah, it's very clear.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, like, just to be crisp about the timeline, the company and the people that deserve credit for the concept of an electric sports car are AC Propulsion.
Yeah.
And the T0.
Yeah.
So they deserve a lot of credit. Eberhard also will never mention them. So this is also a bad sign. It's like it's like it came from whole cloth in his mind. I'm like, no. The T0 from AC Propulsion, Tom Gage and Al Capone made an electric sports car. Then you took their idea and said, let's commercialize it. Yes, agreed. And independently, I also thought, let's commercialize it. And allegedly, there was some other team that also had the idea, let's commercialize the T0. Because AC Propulsion was not willing to do it themselves. So, but from the beginning, I oversaw the product development. In fact, Eberhard blames me for a bunch of the issues with the car saying, oh, like the reason it was expensive was because Elon insisted on all these things about the car. It's like, okay, so if I was controlling the minutia of the product design, but I also had nothing to do with it, which one is it? I can't be both. I can't be blamed for micromanaging the design of the car, but also have nothing to do with it. One of the two, these are incompatible.
Yep.
So I agonized over every inch of that car. I mean, the Pasadena School of Design gave me an honorary degree in because of my work on the Roadster. So that's how much I had to do with it, a lot.
Yeah.
But the issues, the problems with production. I actually wrote a piece. I don't know if you like it's out there somewhere. Early history of Tesla, like a blog piece. I don't know if you've seen it.
It's been a while.
I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, you can probably dredge it up from the Wayback Machine or something like that. It's like the early history of Tesla, because I was trying to explain like just in detail how messed up things were.
Yeah.
So like the core product design for the car itself was, I think, compelling, but the business decisions around how to make it which Eberhard made were terrible. Among the many decisions that were insane were outsourcing battery production to a barbecue factory in Thailand. Yes. So I'm sure they make great barbecues. They didn't know how to make an advanced lithium-ion battery pack.
Oh my goodness.
It's not a factory though.
But hey,
Somebody
it's
to make
factory.
it. You got
Yes.
it.
Are we even sure if it was real, right? It's just
Literally. Yeah. So like the cells would be made in Japan, then be shipped to Thailand, then be put into a battery pack, then go on a boat again to England to be put into a car, and then that car would then go on a boat again to California, which is the initial market. And so it was like this ended up being like a 5 or 6 month long supply chain. So if there was any problem with the cells of the pack, you'd have basically half a year's worth of inventory that you'd have to write off, and cars that didn't work, which is basically what happened. So the barbecue company in Thailand was just utterly unable to make a battery pack. They'd never done anything like it before. So much drama. Martin did not want to change the motor size or power electronic size from the AC propulsion design, which then therefore required having a 2-speed transmission. There were 3 attempts to make a 2-speed transmission. They all failed. And I think on the order of $10 million was spent just trying to make a 2-speed transmission. After we fired Martin, I said we're just going to make the motor bigger and the power electronics bigger and get rid of the 2-speed and just have direct, no transmission, just a direct drive. Need differential and an RPM reducer basically, but you no longer have to have a clutch. So we just made the motor bigger, power electronics bigger, got rid of the transmission. So then now no transmission in the normal sense of the word. When we first, for the very first cars that went into production, they still had that crappy 2-speed transmission. It was just stuck in first gear. So it had like top speed of like 65 miles an hour or something like that. And with some chance of seizing. So the body panels have been outsourced to a company that was completely unable to make carbon fiber body panels, and when I visited Lotus, I asked for their top 10 risks. They said, "Oh, your body panel supplier is going to fail." I'm like, "Excuse me?" And this was like a Friday. I'm like, "Well, let's go there right now." It's like Friday night. So we went to the body panel thing, and just like the tools were just the wrong. They were all wrong. They didn't fit. Like any given body panel had to be basically hand hand massaged, so like make it in the tool, and then it'd be wrong. The tool was wrong, and the process was wrong. So then you had to basically handcraft each body panel in order to make it vaguely fit. And even after that, the body panel gaps were so bad with the trunk that you could literally fit your thumb between the in the gap. It was like messed up beyond belief. And I was like, wow, okay, these guys have a 0% chance of succeeding. So then we had to transfer the body panel production to this company Sortera in France. So then I ended up camping out in France for a few months there, just building new tools for the body. We had to retool the whole body. So Sortera was capable of making the body, but you still needed to retool the thing. So we had to retool the entire car body. So let's see. We changed the car body. The battery pack was I shifted production of the battery pack to Menlo Park, or basically to the Bay Area, technically San Carlos, I think at the time, and switched final assembly to the car dealership on El Camino, the Ford car dealership. If you watch Revenge of the Electric Car, you can see some of these scenes. So instead of having Lotus, so we'd make the battery pack in San Carlos, and then and also make the motor and power electronics. So I insourced production of the battery pack, the motor, and the electronics internal to Tesla, so we could iterate quickly and actually figure out a design that worked. So because design has to be safe, reliable, and not cost crazy money, or it doesn't matter. So so car body, motor, power electronics, transmission to a single speed. Almost everything got changed in the car. So we had to recapitalize the company, and it took about 2 years before we could actually be in real production, like from mid-2007 to mid-2009.
What was the original vision of the Roadster, though? I mean, you obviously had some production issues, but you had an initial vision once you conceived it. I mean, I know, retrospectively, you said that was a mistake to use the Roadster body because there were so many compromises that were.
Well, the Elise body, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Tesla was created with two false assumptions. One false assumption was that you could use the AC propulsion drivetrain technology, and that you could take a Lotus Elise and easily modify that to have an electric powertrain. So essentially, stuff the AC propulsion drivetrain into an Elise, have Lotus do the production, outsource everything. I think Martin thought the peak number of employees would be 35, like literally.
Wow.
This all sounds great, especially coming at it from like a mostly software background of me at the time. I'm like, great, sounds good, Unfortunately, neither of those panned out. The AC propulsion technology was not viable in a production vehicle, and they used for example, analog power electronics. So like depending upon what temperature it was, the car would either work or not work, or certainly work very differently. So we designed our own digital power electronics, and so the car would be consistent in how it performed. We ended up not using the AC propulsion motor design. We changed the motor design. We ended up not using any AC propulsion technology at all. So in that side of things, and then the problem with the Elise is that once you add a big battery pack to a car, the mass of the car is now like 40% heavier than an Elise. So you invalidate the entire structural design of the Elise. The battery pack wouldn't fit, so we had to stretch the chassis. The mass distribution is completely different. like I said, all crash tests are invalidated. All the structural design is invalidated. You have to, you're essentially redesigning everything, but are still left with the constraints of an Elise, which is that it's a little too small. So that's an issue. You couldn't even use the air conditioning system because air conditioning was belt driven, so we needed an electric air conditioning system. So we couldn't even use that. So in the end, the car was so, like, I think the car had maybe 4% or 5% of the parts in common with an Elise.
It's nothing.
Basically, it was worse than if we'd started from a clean sheet.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like if you say like you have a particular home in mind, but instead of building that home on a fresh piece of ground, you take somebody else's home
And stick what you want in it.
and then you knock down everything except one wall and the basement. And so you have the footprint and one wall, and you know, so you have to have like that sort of, and then you try to build your dream home on, but with somebody else's foundation. It's like not a good idea, and more expensive than if you just did a clean sheet.
Yep.
So that was an issue.
Did you ever consider midway through it dropping the body entirely, or was it just the capital sunk in already? Too late of an option.
What do you mean by dropping the body?
I mean, not using the Elise